67 years of holding a sword had taught Hayashi Noboru one truth. The blade was not a weapon. It was a mirror, and most beings in the universe were afraid to look into it. He stood in the shuttle bay of the transport ship, watching stars drift past the viewport. Behind him, 6 of his students waited in silence. They had not spoken in 3 hours. They did not need to. Their bodies knew what their minds had long accepted. They were walking into mockery. They were walking into doubt. And they would answer it the same way their ancestors had answered every challenge for 500 years, with stillness. Earth had joined the Galactic Dominion 8 months ago. Humanity was the newest species, the weakest in terms of technology, the smallest in terms of territory. The Dominion had 12 member worlds, each with thousands of years of space travel behind them. Earth had barely learned to leave its own solar system. Now the Dominion demanded proof. Every species had to demonstrate its warriors at the combat exhibition on Crucible 9, a massive orbital station built specifically for this purpose. It was part tournament, part political display. Species that performed well earned respect. Species that failed became jokes for decades that Earth's military council had debated for weeks. They wanted to send special forces soldiers with the best equipment humanity could offer: drones, powered armor, neural targeting systems. But a cultural advisor named Tanaka had made a different suggestion. Send the old ways, she had said. Send something they have never seen. And so they chose 7 practitioners of Tenshin Shoden Katori Shinto-ryu, one of the oldest martial schools on Earth. A tradition unbroken for over 5 centuries. Men and women who had dedicated their entire lives to the sword. Hayashi was their master. His students were Ogawa Kenji, a man of 32 who had trained since childhood. Mori Akiko, 41, whose precision with the naginata was considered the finest in Japan. And 4 others, each carrying decades of practice in their bones. Their weapons were simple: katana, wakizashi, yari spears, naginata polearms. No electronics. No enhancements. Just steel folded by human hands, edges sharpened by human patience. The shuttle docked with Crucible 9, and Hayashi led his students through the airlock. The station's main corridor stretched before them, filled with beings from across the galaxy. Some had 4 arms. Some had scales. Some moved on legs that bent backward. All of them turned to stare. Hayashi walked forward in his traditional hakama, his sword at his hip. His students followed in formation. Their footsteps made no sound. The laughter started almost immediately that a group of Raxians blocked the corridor ahead. They were massive creatures, nearly 3 meters tall, with thick armored hide and 4 muscular arms. Their leader, a warrior named Gorak, stepped forward with a grin that showed rows of sharp teeth. "This is what Earth sends." His translator rendered his words in a mocking tone. "Old men with metal sticks." His warriors laughed. Other species in the corridor joined in. A Thelian journalist raised her recording device, capturing the moment. Hayashi stopped walking. He looked at Gorak with eyes that held no anger, no fear, no reaction at all. Then he bowed slightly, a gesture of acknowledgement, and walked around the Vraxian as if he were a stone in a stream. Gorak's laughter died. He was not used to being ignored. "Human," he called out. "Do you know who I am? I am Highblade Gorak. I have killed more warriors than you have years of life." Hayashi did not turn around. "Then you have much to carry," he said quietly. "I hope your shoulders are strong." He continued walking. His students followed. The corridor fell into confused silence in the delegation quarters. Hayashi's youngest student, Kenji, finally spoke. "Master, should we not have answered them? Shown them something?" Hayashi knelt on the floor and began unwrapping his sword for maintenance. "What would you show them, Kenji? Anger? Pride? These are gifts we give to our opponents. I prefer to give nothing. But they think we are weak." "Good." Hayashi drew a cloth along his blade, the motion smooth and practiced. "Let them think. Thinking is not knowing. When the time comes, they will know." Akiko knelt beside Kenji. "In our school, we have a saying. The loud river is shallow. The deep river is silent." Kenji watched his master work. The old man's hands moved with absolute certainty, each gesture identical to the one before it, the same motions he had performed 10,000 times. There was no hesitation, no waste, just pure, refined action. Outside their quarters, the galaxy continued to laugh. Media feeds called Earth's delegation a joke. Commentators predicted they would be eliminated in the first round. Betting markets gave them the lowest odds of any species in exhibition history. But in the quiet room, 7 humans knelt in a circle, their swords laid before them. They breathed together. They waited together. And in their stillness, there was something that the galaxy had not yet learned to see. Something that had taken 500 years to forge. Something that could not be measured by technology or size or the number of kills on a warrior's record. Hayashi finished his maintenance and sheathed his blade. He closed his eyes. Tomorrow, the exhibition would begin. Tomorrow, the galaxy would learn what Earth had sent. Not soldiers, not weapons, masters. Pyrrha had documented 400 combat exhibitions in her career. She had seen warriors who could bend light, soldiers who could regenerate lost limbs in seconds, assassins who moved faster than eyes could track. Nothing surprised her anymore, until she watched 7 humans sit motionless for 6 hours. She was a Thelian journalist, small and curious, with large eyes that recorded everything they saw. Her species had built their reputation on observation. They noticed what others missed. And right now, every instinct told her she was missing something important. The training halls of Crucible 9 buzzed with activity. The Vraxians practiced their brutal combat forms, each strike powerful enough to crack steel. The Melori demonstrated their bioelectric whips, weapons grown from their own bodies. The Syndicate soldiers tested powered exoskeletons that tripled their strength, and the humans did nothing. They sat in their assigned training space, arranged in a circle, breathing. Just breathing. Their swords lay untouched before them. Their eyes remained closed. Other delegations walked past and laughed. Someone threw a food wrapper at them. It landed near Kenji's knee. He did not move, did not open his eyes, did not acknowledge it at all. Pyrrha watched from the observation deck, her recording device capturing every moment. She had planned to document their inevitable failure. Now she was not sure what she was documenting. A commotion erupted at the main entrance. Gorik strode into the training hall with his warriors, heading straight for the human section. The Vraxians still burned with anger from being ignored in the corridor. "Human master," he called out, his voice echoing through the hall. "I challenge you. An informal duel. Right now? Let us see what your metal sticks can do against real weapons." Other species gathered to watch. This was entertainment. The mighty Vraxian crushing the primitive humans. Hayashi opened his eyes slowly. He looked at Gorik with the same empty calm he had shown before. "I decline." Gorik's face twisted. "You decline? You are a coward then. Just as I thought." "Perhaps." Hayashi closed his eyes again. "I only draw my blade with purpose. Satisfying your anger is not purpose." The hall erupted in laughter. Gorik's own warriors mocked the humans. The story spread through the station within minutes. Earth's warriors were cowards. They refused to fight. They sat and did nothing. But Pyrrha noticed something. She zoomed her recording device closer, focusing on Hayashi's face. The old man was not bothered, not afraid, not embarrassed. He simply continued to breathe, as if Gorik did not exist. That night, she requested an interview. To her surprise, they agreed. She found Hayashi alone in the delegation quarters, performing maintenance on a long spear. His movements were hypnotic. Each stroke of the cloth followed the same path as the one before. Perfect repetition. Perfect calm. "Why did you refuse the duel?" she asked. "Why would I accept?" "To prove you are not weak. To show the galaxy what humans can do." Hayashi set down the spear and looked at her. His eyes were dark and deep, like still water. "If I must prove my strength, then I have already lost." The warrior who seeks to prove himself fights with chains on his arms. He is bound by the opinion of others. Pyrrha tilted her head. "So you do not care what the galaxy thinks." "The galaxy's thoughts are the galaxy's burden. I carry only my own." "And what do you think?" A small smile crossed Hayashi's face. "I think we will perform adequately." Later, Pyrrha found the students training in private. They moved through forms she did not understand. Slow, deliberate movements that looked like dancing. Then sudden bursts of speed that her eyes could barely follow. The sound of their wooden practice, swords cracking together, echoed like thunder. She watched Kenji practicing the same cut over and over. Draw the blade. Strike. Return. Draw the blade. Strike. Return. He must have done it 500 times without stopping. "Why do you repeat the same action?" she asked him during a break. Kenji wiped sweat from his forehead. "Because I have not perfected it yet. You have done it 500 times. Master Hayashi has done it 500,000 times, and he still practices every day. Kenji looked at his blade. We do not train to learn something new. We train to make the old things part of our soul. When the moment comes, there is no time to think. The body must move on its own. Pyrrha recorded his words, marking them as significant. She was beginning to understand. These humans were not soldiers who learned to fight. They were something else entirely. They had spent their lives merging with their weapons until there was no separation. Back in the training hall, Gorik was demonstrating his kills to an admiring crowd. He had brought recordings of his past duels. Bodies torn apart. Warriors cut in half. The audience cheered that I in their quarters. The humans continued to breathe. The exhibition would begin in 12 hours. Pyrrha found herself doing something she had not done in 400 exhibitions. She made a note in her personal files. Watch carefully. Something is wrong with the odds. She was not sure yet if it was good wrong or bad wrong, but she intended to find out. The arena of Crucible 9 could hold 2 million spectators. Today it was full. Beings from across the galaxy had come to watch the combat exhibition, the oldest tradition in the Dominion. And secretly, many had come to watch the humans fail. The first trial was simple. Each delegation had to clear an obstacle course filled with combat drones. The drones were programmed to attack. They carried stun weapons that could incapacitate any species. The goal was to disable them all and reach the finish line. The Vraxians went first. Gorik led his warriors into the course with a roar. They charged forward like a storm, for arms swinging, natural claws tearing through metal. Drones fell in pieces. Some were crushed. Others were ripped apart. The Vraxians moved with brutal efficiency, overwhelming everything in their path. Time, for minutes and 12 seconds, a new exhibition record. The arena exploded with cheers. Gorik raised all 4 arms in victory, his warriors howling behind him. Other delegations exchanged worried glances. The Vraxians had set an impossible standard. Species after species attempted the course. The Mellori finished in 5 minutes. The Syndicate soldiers completed it in 4 minutes and 40 seconds. Good times. Respectable times. But none could match the Vraxians. Then the announcer called for Earth. The cheers turned to laughter. Some spectators began chanting jokes. Others held up signs mocking the humans. The betting board showed Earth's odds at 3,000 to 1. Hayashi led his students onto the course. 7 figures in traditional clothing, carrying swords and spears that looked like museum pieces. The contrast with the powered armor and energy weapons of other species was almost painful. Pyrrha watched from the press section, her recording device focused on Hayashi's face. The old man showed nothing. No nervousness. No determination. Just emptiness. The starting signal sounded. Hayashi spoke one word. Flow. The samurai began to move. They did not charge. They did not roar. They walked forward with measured steps, spreading into a formation that looked almost casual. The audience laughed louder. Were they even trying? The first wave of drones attacked. Hayashi's blade came out of its sheath so fast that Pyrrha's recording device missed it. One moment the sword was at his hip. The next moment, 3 drones were falling in pieces. He had already sheathed the blade and was walking forward again. The laughter stopped. Kenji moved through a cluster of drones like water through stones. His sword never stopped moving, never paused, never hesitated. Each cut was precise. Each step flowed into the next. Drones fell around him like leaves. Akiko swept her naginata in wide arcs, the long blades singing through the air. She did not block attacks. She redirected them. Drones struck at her and found themselves hitting each other instead. The samurai did not fight the course. They moved through it. There was no wasted energy, no unnecessary motion. They did not stop to celebrate small victories. They did not slow down to catch their breath. They simply continued forward, a river flowing around obstacles. The arena fell silent. Pyrrha realized she was holding her breath. She had seen powerful warriors. She had seen fast warriors. She had never seen anything like this. The samurai were not defeating the drones. They were making the drones irrelevant. Hayashi reached the finish line first. He stopped and turned, watching his students complete their paths. One by one, they arrived at his side. Their breathing was slightly elevated. Nothing more. Time. For minutes and 7 seconds. A new exhibition record. The silence stretched for 5 seconds. 10 seconds. Then the arena erupted. Not in mockery this time. In confusion. In disbelief. In something that might have been the beginning of respect, Gorik stood in the Vraxian section, his four fists clenched. His record had stood for less than an hour. He had been beaten by old men with metal sticks that a reporter pushed through the crowd to reach Hayashi. How did you do that? What technology are you using? Hayashi looked at him with those calm, empty eyes. No technology. But that is impossible. Your speed, your precision, it cannot be natural. It is not natural, Hayashi agreed. It took 50 years to develop. There is nothing natural about that. It is the opposite of natural. It is refined. The reporter stammered more questions, but Hayashi simply bowed and walked away. His students followed in silence. In the press section, Pyrrha reviewed her recordings. She slowed them down, frame by frame. She watched Hayashi's draw over and over. The movement was so clean, so perfect, that it looked fake. But it was real. A human being had actually moved that fast, that precisely, without any enhancement. She made another note in her files. Previous assessment incorrect. These are not primitive warriors. Classification unknown. Across the arena, Gorik was speaking with his warriors. His voice was low, his eyes fixed on the humans as they disappeared through the exit. Luck, he said. It was luck. The dual trial will expose them. But his voice lacked conviction. And somewhere deep in his warrior's instincts, a small doubt had been born, a doubt that would grow with every hour, until it consumed him completely. The formal challenge came at midnight. Gorik strode into the human quarters without warning, flanked by two Dominion officials. His presence filled the room. His anger filled it even more. I invoke the right of single combat, he announced. Under Article 7 of the original Dominion Charter. A challenge between champions. Earth must accept or forfeit all standing in this exhibition. Hayashi was kneeling in meditation. He opened his eyes slowly. I accept. The officials exchanged surprised glances. They had expected negotiation, arguments, perhaps a desperate plea for mercy. Instead, the old humans simply agreed, as if Gorik had offered him tea. The duel will take place tomorrow at the peak hour, one official said. Traditional rules apply. No technological enhancements. Combat continues until one warrior yields or is unable to continue. Gorik grinned, showing all his teeth. Traditional rules suit me perfectly. I was born with all the weapons I need. He flexed his four arms, each one thick with muscle and covered in natural armor. After they left, Kenji approached his master. You should not have accepted. This is not part of the exhibition. You do not need to do this. Need is not the question. Hayashi rose to his feet. He will continue to disrupt our purpose until this is settled. Better to settle it cleanly. But master, he is twice your size. 4 arms against 2. His hide can stop bullets. How can you possibly, Kenji? Hayashi's voice was gentle but firm. You have trained with me for 18 years. Have I taught you nothing? Kenji fell silent. Akiko spoke from across the room. The master does not fight with his arms. He fights with something Gorik does not possess. What is that? Nothing. She smiled slightly. Literally nothing. An empty mind. No fear to slow him. No anger to blind him. No desire to distract him. When you have truly let go of everything, you become impossible to predict. Because you are not predicting yourself. That night, Pyrrha requested her final interview before the duel. She found Hayashi alone, sitting by a viewport that looked out at the stars. Are you afraid? She asked. I was afraid once. When I was young and foolish and thought my life was important. Your life is not important. My life is precious. But importance is different. A thing can be precious without being important. I will die someday. Perhaps tomorrow. Perhaps in 30 years. The timing does not change what I must do tonight, or what I must do in the morning. Pyrrha sat down across from him. Help me understand. Your species has weapons that can destroy cities. Ships that can travel between stars. Why do you still practice with swords? Hayashi was quiet for a long moment. Do you know what a sword teaches you that a gun cannot? Tell me. A gun kills at a distance. You press a trigger and something far away dies. There is separation. Safety. But a sword. He touched the handle at his hip. A sword requires you to stand within arm's reach of death. To look into the eyes of the one who might kill you. To feel their breath on your face. There is no separation. No safety. Only you and them and the moment. That sounds terrifying. It is. Until you accept it. And then it becomes freedom. He looked at her directly. Most beings spend their lives running from death. We spend our lives walking toward it. Not to die, but to make peace with dying. And when you have made peace with the end, the middle becomes very clear. Pyrrha recorded his words, knowing they would be watched by billions. What will you do tomorrow? What I have always done. I will stand. I will breathe. And when the moment comes, I will move. And if you lose, then I will have learned something. A small smile crossed his face. Though I admit, learning is easier when you survive the lesson. Across the station, Gorik prepared in his own way. He sharpened his claws against stone until they gleamed. He reviewed recordings of his past kills, reminding himself of his power. He told his warriors stories of the enemies he had broken, but sleep did not come easily that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the old human's face. Those empty, calm eyes. The absolute stillness. The complete lack of fear. Gorik had fought hundreds of warriors. He had seen fear in all of them. Even the bravest showed something. A tightness around the eyes. A tension in the muscles. Something that proved they wanted to live. The human showed nothing. And for the first time in his long career, Gorik wondered if he had challenged the wrong opponent. The thought kept him awake until dawn. When the sun rose over Crucible 9, two warriors prepared to face each other. One had 4 arms, armored hide, and a lifetime of kills. The other had 1 sword, an empty mind, and 500 years of tradition in his bones. The galaxy was about to learn which one was more dangerous. The grand arena held its breath. 3 million beings watched from the stands. Billions more watched from screens across the Dominion. This was no longer just a duel. It was a statement. The greatest warrior of the Vraxians against a human with a sword. The outcome would define how the galaxy saw Earth for generations. Gorik entered first. He strode onto the arena floor with all 4 arms spread wide, roaring his battle cry. The Vraxian section of the crowd screamed in response. He was enormous, nearly 3 meters tall. His armored hide gleamed under the arena lights. His claws had been sharpened to molecular edges. Then Hayashi entered. He walked slowly, his footsteps silent on the stone floor. He wore his traditional hakama, the wide pants flowing with each movement. His katana hung at his hip. Nothing else. No armor. No shield. No protection of any kind. The contrast was almost absurd. A giant versus an old man. 4 arms versus 2. Natural armor versus cloth. The betting boards updated in real time. Gorik was favored 900 to 1. The arbiter stepped forward. This duel follows traditional rules. No technological enhancement. No outside assistance. Combat continues until one warrior yields or is unable to continue. Do both champions agree? I agree, Gorik growled. I agree, Hayashi said quietly. Then take your positions. They moved to opposite ends of the arena. 20 meters separated them. Gorik dropped into his fighting stance. All 4 arms raised, claws extended. His muscles coiled with barely contained violence. Hayashi did something different that he stopped walking. He turned to face Gorik. And then he went completely still. Not mostly still. Not almost still. Completely still. His hands hung at his sides. His eyes were open but empty. His chest barely moved with his breathing. He looked like a statue carved from stone. The crowd murmured in confusion. Was something wrong? Had he frozen in fear? Gorik waited for a moment, then another. The human did not move, did not reach for his sword, did not take a stance. Human, Gorik called out. Are you ready? No response. Human, nothing. Gorik's patience broke. He charged. The Vraxian crossed 20 meters in less than 2 seconds. His 4 arms struck in a pattern that had killed dozens of warriors. Upper left sweeping down, upper right stabbing forward, lower arms ready to catch and crush. A perfect attack from every angle. Hayashi did not move. The crowd gasped. This was it. The human would die without even trying to defend himself. The last instant. Hayashi moved. It was not a block. Not a dodge. It was a shift. A tiny adjustment of weight. A slight turn of the hip. Gorik's claws passed through empty air. And in that same fraction of a second, Hayashi's sword came out of its sheath. The blade drew and cut in a single motion. Iajutsu, the art of the drawing cut. A technique refined over 5 centuries to be performed faster than thought. Gorik's primary striking arm fell to the ground. The Vraxian stumbled past, momentum carrying him forward. He spun around, shock written across his face. Blood poured from the stump where his upper right arm had been. He stared at it, unable to process what had happened. Hayashi had already sheathed his sword. He stood in exactly the same position as before. Still, empty, waiting. The arena was silent. Gorik roared in rage and pain. He charged again, 3 arms striking now, faster and more desperate. He would overwhelm this human with pure fury. Hayashi waited. The claws came closer, closer. At the final moment, another shift, another draw, another cut. Gorik's lower right arm joined the first on the ground. This time the Vraxian fell to one knee. His remaining 2 arms clutched at his wounds. His breathing came in ragged gasps. But he was a warrior. He had never yielded in his life. That he rose again. "I will kill you," he snarled. "Even with 1 arm, I will kill you." He charged a 3rd time. Slower now, weakened by blood loss, but still deadly. His remaining claws were enough to tear a human apart. Hayashi watched him come. His eyes showed nothing. No triumph. No satisfaction. No cruelty. Just presence. Just awareness. Just the moment. The final cut came so fast that the arena's recording systems caught only a blur. Hayashi's blade sliced across Gorik's remaining arms in a single horizontal stroke. The wounds were precise, non-lethal, but the great warrior collapsed to the ground, completely disabled. Hayashi sheathed his sword one final time. He walked to where Gorik lay and looked down at him. "You fought well," he said quietly. "Your courage is genuine. But courage alone is not enough." He bowed to his fallen opponent. A bow of respect. A bow that said, "You were worthy." Then he turned and walked toward the exit. Behind him, the arena remained silent for 5 seconds. 10 seconds. And then it erupted, not in mockery, not in confusion, but in something the galaxy had not felt toward humans before: awe. The commentators would later struggle to describe what they had witnessed. One phrase emerged above all others. It spread across the Dominion within hours, becoming the defining description of that moment. They mocked Earth's warriors. Then the samurai stopped moving. And in that stillness, they found something more terrifying than any weapon: a human who had made peace with death and was therefore impossible to defeat. 3 days after the duel, Gorik asked to see Hayashi. The Vraxian lay in the medical bay, his 4 arms replaced with temporary prosthetics while his body healed. The doctors said he would recover fully. His pride was another matter. Hayashi came alone. He knelt beside the medical bed and waited. For a long time, Gorik said nothing. He stared at the ceiling, his jaw tight. Finally, he spoke. How? How what? How did you defeat me? I am stronger. Faster. I have natural armor. For arms. I have killed 100 warriors. You are old. Small. Soft. His voice cracked with frustration. How? Hayashi considered the question carefully. You fought to win. I fought with nothing to lose. That makes no sense. When you charged at me, what did you want? To kill you. To prove I was superior. And there is your answer. You wanted something. Your mind was full of desire. Full of expectation. Full of the future you were trying to create. Hayashi touched his chest. My mind was empty. I was not trying to win. I was not trying to survive. I was simply present. And because I wanted nothing, I could see everything. Every movement you made. Every opening you left. Gorik was quiet for a moment. Can this be taught? It can. But it takes decades. And most beings lack the patience. Would you teach me? Hayashi looked at the Vraxian, seeing past the warrior to something underneath. Something that had been humbled. Something that wanted to understand. The path is open to anyone, Hayashi said. But I warn you, it requires you to become nothing before you can become something new. Most warriors cannot accept that. I will try. Hayashi bowed. Then perhaps we will meet again, Gorik. As teacher and student. Outside the medical bay, the galaxy continued to transform. Pyrrha's documentary spread across the Dominion. It was titled The Warriors Who Stand Still, and it became the most watched content in exhibition history. Billions watched the samurai move through the obstacle course. Billions more watched the duel, frame by frame, trying to understand what they had seen. Earth received over 200 formal requests from other species. They wanted to study human martial traditions. They wanted to understand the philosophy behind the stillness. They wanted to know how beings without natural weapons or armor or enhanced technology had produced warriors like this. The Galactic Council issued a formal recognition. Earth's warrior traditions were declared culturally significant, protected under Dominion heritage laws. The samurai were no longer a joke. They were a mystery that the galaxy desperately wanted to solve. 2 weeks later, Hayashi and his students returned to Earth. There were no parades, no celebrations. They simply walked off the shuttle and took a transport to their dojo in the mountains of Japan. The same dojo where their tradition had been practiced for 500 years. That evening, Hayashi sat with his students in the training hall. Candles flickered in the corners. The wooden floor gleamed from centuries of polish. "Master," Kenji said, "what did it feel like to defeat the greatest warrior in the galaxy?" Hayashi picked up a practice sword and examined it. "I did not defeat him, but you won." Everyone saw it. "I did not defeat him," Hayashi repeated. "I was simply present in the moment. The sword moved itself. I was only there to hold it." Kenji frowned. "I do not understand." "Good. Understanding is not the goal. Practice is the goal. Understanding comes later. Much later. Perhaps never." Hayashi stood and moved to the center of the hall. "Now, let us begin." The students rose and took their positions. The same positions their predecessors had taken for 5 centuries. The same forms. The same movements. The same endless refinement. Outside, the world had changed. Humanity was no longer the joke of the galaxy. They were something else now. Something that made other species nervous in ways they could not explain. But inside the dojo, nothing had changed. Hayashi raised his practice sword. His students mirrored him. And together, they began the first form. The same form they had practiced yesterday. The same form they would practice tomorrow. The same form their students would practice 100 years from now. Because mastery was not a destination. It was a path. And the path never ended. Somewhere in the medical bay of Crucible 9, a Vraxian warrior was taking his first steps on that path. He would struggle. He would fail. He would learn. And perhaps, in 20 or 30 years, he would begin to understand what Hayashi had known all along. True strength does not announce itself. True power does not need to prove itself. The loudest warriors are the weakest. The strongest warriors are silent. And sometimes, the most terrifying thing in the universe is not a weapon or a warship or a planet-killer. It is an old man standing perfectly still, waiting, just waiting, until the moment arrives.